Gauravani Prachari Devastation Sunyari Astyacha Desatari Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachari Devastation Sunyavadi Astyacha Desatari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Iyadeva Gadada Shiva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Haribo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Iyadeva Gadada Shiva Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Bolo Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribo Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Haribo Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtota Satashri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nama Acharya Shri Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Ganga Maya Ki, Yamuna Maya Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Amaveta Bhaktavinda Ki, Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Sri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki, Srila Gadadhar Pandit ki jai, Go Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Grand, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada, Haribo, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswate Devi, Gaudavani Puchardine Nevasesha Shunyavadi Pastacha, Deshatarine, Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Welcome, dear devotees, on this very auspicious day of the appearance day, at least here in France. Maybe it's a different day where you are, but in France today is the appearance day of Srila Gadadhar Pandit, the dear most associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're not going to speak directly about Gadadhar Pandit this evening. We're going to carry on where we left off the other evening in discussing the wonderful prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to his worshipable Lord, Lord Nrsimhadev. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvyevicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So this evening we may not be able to carry on so long. Is that correct?
40 minutes next.
Yeah, the Zoom has given us only 40 minutes this evening, so bear that in mind. We'll try to adjust it for the next one, but this evening may be a little shorter. So we did, 2 nights ago, we chanted from the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, that beautiful prayer. We're going to do it again tonight. There's no harm in recitation of a good thing. We can repeat it again and again. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, we see Sanjaya, he becomes ever, enlivened, ever excited, like repeating again and again the words he heard from Krishna. I can read a verse in the Bhagavatam here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And this is in the 1st canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 1, text 19. It's the sages of Naimisharanya. They're addressing Sutta Goswami and encouraging him. They want to hear from him, Krishna Katha. So this beautiful verse goes like this. We never tire, they say, we never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who enjoy association with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So it's not like, and Prabhupada writes in the purport, it's a beautiful, beautiful purport here. I'll read 1 or 2 lines here. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Puranas are histories of bygone ages recorded in connection with the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord, and therefore they remain ever fresh even after repeated readings. For example, anyone may read Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly throughout his whole life and yet find in them new light of information. Each time we read, it's like reading for the first time, it's that new light comes out. Realizations. Mundane news is static, whereas transcendental news is dynamic. We sometimes say ecstatic. Inasmuch as the spirit is dynamic. Spirit is dynamic and matter is static. Those who have developed a taste for understanding the transcendental subject matter are never tired of hearing such narrations. One is quickly satiated by mundane activity, but no one is satiated by transcendental or devotional activity. Uttama Shloka indicates that literature, which is not meant for nescience. Mundane literature is in the mode of darkness or ignorance, whereas transcendental literature is quite different. Transcendental literature is above the mode of darkness, and its light becomes more luminous with progressive reading and realization of the transcendental subject matter. This is the nature of spiritual subject. It's ever fresh each time. In fact, if you're really serious, if you read 41 pages a day of Srimad Bhagavatam, you can read the whole Bhagavatam in 1 year, and about 32 in the Chaitanya Charitamrita or something. You can read the whole book in a year. So we're going to carry on from where we left off the other evening. So if you do have we can put it on the screen, I believe. This is the 5th canto, chapter 18, text number 8. There it is. Om, all together. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasingaya Namaste Jase Avir Bhava Vajranaka Vajradangshu Karma Shayan Randaya Tamo Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Atmuni Bhuyashta Om Shram. So we're going to just go to the translation. Prahlad Maharaj prays Lord Nrsingadev. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsingadeva, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possess nails and teeth, just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. Can you still see who's trying to get on?
Yes, ma'am.
Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, and as we just heard from the sages of Naimishranya, to hear this subject again and again is ever relishable. And as Srila Prabhupada says, one gets newer and newer enlightenment each time we read it. It means it goes deeper and deeper into our consciousness. And as our consciousness becomes cleaner and purified by hearing from the right source, then we see things we didn't see. We realize things we didn't see before by the grace of Krishna. Because we're in darkness, we get afraid. We all have that experience. When something happens in the dark, it's much more fearful than when it happens in the light. I'm sure everyone's experienced that. Darkness is like ignorance. Knowledge is light. So when the sun rises, Prabhupada says that all darkness goes away, fear goes away. So when we have actual knowledge, spiritual knowledge, not just theory, that may be the beginning, but realization of that knowledge, then all ignorance, all darkness can go away. And fear is simply due to ignorance. We don't know. So that knowledge is what removes that ignorance. Sanatan Kumar speaks the following words to Maharaj Prithu. This is the purport of the verse, 4th canto. Yat pada pankaja palashavalasa bhaktya karma shayangra titam udgratayanti santaha tadvana rikta matayo yatayo pirudha shoto ganastam haranam bhajavasudevam. Devotees always engaged in the service of the toes of the Lord's lotus feet can very easily become free from hard knotted desires for fruitive activity. Because this is very difficult. The non-devotees, the jnanis and the yogis, cannot stop the waves of sense gratification, although they try to do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. The mind never stops for a moment. The living entity is by nature sentient. Prabhupada says, if we have no desire, we don't exist anymore. So to stop the actual existence or the flow of desire is not really possible. Even the desire to merge into the Brahman is a desire. So the solution given herein is we fill our consciousness with desire in relation with Krishna. Every living being within this world has a strong desire to enjoy matter to his fullest satisfaction. For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. One cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless, meaning without material desire. Therefore, Rupa Goswami describes pure bhakti as follows. Anyabilasata shunyam jnanakamadhyanavitum anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna favorably, and without desire for material profit or gain, through fruitive activity or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Unless one is completely freed of all material desires which are caused by the dense darkness of ignorance, one cannot fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, we should always offer our prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. Because as long as that darkness of ignorance is there, we can't see. Fear will be there. Forgetting Krishna, our consciousness is adulterated by various kinds of attachments, by various kinds of coverings of the modes of nature. So the process of cleansing that away, of hearing and chanting the holy name of Krishna, of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, rendering service to the pure devotees, evokes the mercy of Krishna. As we know in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Goswami explains that by service to those devotees, Shushushrosha Dadanasya Vasudeva Katarishi, the one becomes purified. The Lord cleanses our heart. And as that happens, then the attraction to hear and chant about Krishna develops. Therefore, we should always offer our prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. Because he, by his grace, he can kill all these demons within our heart. Just like he killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desire. Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means a soft cushion or bed. Materialistic persons always desire to make the body comfortable, and for this they require huge amounts of gold. Nowadays, of course, gold is hardly seen. It's all artificial monetary system, and if something goes wrong, so does the problem begin. It's already there, but it manifests in the form that we may not have comfortable beds any longer. We may not have all those material facilities that we thought we take for granted, that we thought we could just get by pressing a button. We press the button and maybe nothing will come out. Materialistic persons always desire to make the body comfortable, and thus they require huge amounts of gold. Thus Hiranyakashipu was the perfect representative of materialistic life. He was therefore the cause of great disturbance to the topmost devotee Prahlad Maharaj, until Lord Nrsimhadev killed him. Any devotee aspiring to be free of material desire should offer his respectful prayers to Nrsimhadev, as Prahlad Maharaj did in this verse. So again, last week we gave a warning before, I call it, before you do something. It's a word I forgot. But before you start, discredit something or other, to let you off the hook. So anyone who will be careful if you're going to chant this prayer, because you may find that Lord Nrsimhadev will start to remove one's material desires from the heart. And we have to be ready for it. So Hare Krishna. Now we're going to go on. That's the end of the purport. So back on the screen. Hare Krishna, everybody. So enemies, killing those enemies in the heart, those coverings in our heart. They are manifold, we know that. And usually we think of our enemies as an external obstacle on the path of our sense gratification. But we find from Prahlad Maharaj, in many places in the scriptures, that enemies are described otherwise. Let's have another look here. This is also from Prahlad Maharaj in his, in the pastimes of his relationship with his father, Hiranyakashipu. And he's addressing his father. Pretty bold, you know. How old was Prahlad? 7? 7 years old? 7 years old. I saw one of our devotees here today, his name Dhruva. He's maybe a little bit older than 7. But here's Prahlad Maharaj, and he's addressing his father. And his father is quite a heavy character. Quite, as Prabhupada says here, he's a personification of material sense gratification. He's very powerful. He's conquered the universe, but he couldn't conquer his own mind. So Prahlad Maharaj said, "My dear father, please give up your demoniac mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoise towards everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. Pretty nice. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no other enemy. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshipping the Lord perfectly. Because one sees everybody as part and parcel of Krishna. It's not that, these are devotees, those are not devotees. Everybody is. And right now, we may not remember that. But in reality, everybody is Krishna's part and parcel. How's it go? Bhagavad Gita. And everyone's a part and parcel of the Lord. And a pure devotee sees like that. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hashtami. He sees everyone equally. So he doesn't have friends and enemies. It's because everyone belongs to Krishna. If we have an enemy, that means, one of Krishna's parts and parcels is our enemy, and we're discriminating. Like saying, I like your fingers, I don't like your toes. Well, maybe you do think like that, but that's not, that's not a complete understanding of how we like somebody. We have to accept them in their full. So to accept Krishna fully, a pure devotee, at least like Prahlad Maharaj, he's giving this instruction to his father. He goes on and he says, in former times, there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance.
We have 10 minutes more.
Oh, that was quick. And not even 40. You better extend. Can you extend it?
Can we start with 1?
We can start.
I don't know.
We can start.
They just told us we got 10 minutes left because we started early, I guess. That's why.
We can start a new one.
I don't know what you can do. We'll carry on for another 10 minutes, and then if you want to stay with us, you're welcome. We're going to try to see if we can start a new one, or we'll try to start something. We're going to solve this, we hope, before Friday. Don't worry. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, so no, just carry on. Enemies are only imagined by one in ignorance. Because we're seeing and judging everything through material mind, and we're seeing that which is good and bad according to our condition. The object is neither good or bad. It's how we perceive it. And this is the science of devotional service. It's not changing the object that we perceive. Whether it's a person, whether it's a place, whatever it may be. And it's not exactly changing us, the pure soul, who has really nothing to do. The material duality has nothing really to do with the soul. What is to be changed is our consciousness, how we perceive the world around us. And how is that perception, how is that changed? And that is changed by exposing ourselves to hearing the transcendental sound of the holy name. By exposing it, by hearing again and again the sound vibration of Bhagavatam, of Krishna consciousness, of the holy name. Okay, so now we're going to go a little bit more on with our enemies. So what are those 6 enemies? Those 6 enemies we heard last week. Sometimes they're described as the mind and the 5 senses, and sometimes they're described as lust, greed, anger, illusion, madness, like that, greed, anger. And sometimes they're described as the mind and the 5 senses, which are not engaged in Krishna service. Because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the mind can be our friend or our enemy. One who understands or one who sees things in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mind can be our greatest friend. One who fails to do so, the mind is our greatest enemy. Now, in the 7th canto also, Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni describes very nicely this subject matter of the mind and our various enemies. Why are they called enemies? For most people, we see, let's say, the opportunity to fulfill the mind's demands as being very favorable. You're my friend because you're fulfilling my sense gratification. And you're my enemy because you're getting in the way of my sense gratification. That's pretty much the bottom line. But we don't realize that is actually, this endeavor to try to satisfy our senses is actually the cause of our suffering. is actually that which is our enemy. And a person who tries, and in the material world, of course, we have this, everything's upside down and people see it the other way around. And the whole society, at least especially nowadays, is based on that principle, practically speaking, of fulfilling people's desire for sense gratification. So here Narada Muni says, in the conditioned stage, one's conceptions of life are sometimes, this is the 7th canto, chapter 15, text 43, if you want to follow. In the conditioned stage, one's conceptions of life are sometimes polluted by passion and ignorance, which are exhibited by attachment, hostility, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, madness, false prestige, insults, fault-finding, deception, envy, intolerance, passion, bewilderment, hunger, and sleep. All of these are enemies. Sometimes one's conceptions are also polluted by goodness. We don't generally think of goodness as an enemy, but from the spiritual platform it can be, because why? As we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this, that this attachment in the mode of goodness is also very binding. It's very binding. Someone got lost there. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. It's very binding. In fact, sometimes it's more binding than attachment in the other modes, because you get respected, you feel good, nice, comfortable, huh? Self-justification. You can look at religious principles and it seems like you're doing pretty good, and so on and so forth. Huh? Everyone's saying, what a nice person you are, you're a hero, people are clapping you, and so many things. Very good. But it's actually not. It's actually it's a bondage. It's actually an enemy if we're attached to that mode also. Now, of course, if we're attached to that mode and we're following the society, we're following a leader who's transcendental, who's guiding us forward, then that can be favorable, more so than the other modes. But generally speaking, one becomes very attached in that mode of goodness. In the purport, I'm not going to read it all. It's very long. I'll just read a few things. To progress towards the target, again, everyone in the material world, no matter what mode we're in, has some kind of goal. So if we want to get out of this material, we generally need to have a goal. It's very rare you get like an honorary degree and just somehow or another you get out of here. You usually got to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, you don't usually win the game. So you've got to know what your goal is. So to progress towards the target of Vishnu, Srila Prabhupada writes the 2nd canto of the Bhagavad Gita, all the problems in this material world are due to the fact that people don't have an ultimate goal in life. They have so many temporary goals, but those goals are all in the modes of nature. So you just end up staying, in whatever mode you're in, or a mixture of modes, or whatever, affected by the association. The modes change, but everyone's still within the modes of nature, and thus under the influence of ignorance. But the goal is Vishnu, to get free of this, which is our real self-interest. One must become very powerful. And that doesn't mean materially powerful necessarily. Some people may think. It become very powerful in conquering these various hindrances or enemies, because they're very strong. Material energy, which is this material energy of mine, is very, very hard to overcome. It's very strong. So we have to take shelter of some very powerful, just like we said the other day, of a child taking shelter of its parents. Parents, are we on or not?
We are on, Maharaj. We have 2 minutes left, but we have another reunion starting in. They'll have to wait 5 minutes at 6:30. Another reunion will start.
I better tell you what's going on. Our facilitator here is telling us that we're going to have to finish in 1 or 2 minutes, but we'll be online again 5 minutes after that, if you want to join us again.
And the link is on the chat.
The link is on the chat. It's all bewildering to me. The link is on the chat, if you know what that is. And hopefully you do. And we'll be back on again after another minute. So I'll just finish this little bit of the purport. One must become very powerful in conquering these various hindrances or enemies. In other words, one should not be attached to being a good man or a bad man in this material world. And one more bit from that purport. In this regard, one must be very bold so that he can conquer these enemies of Krishna consciousness. Not caring for the good and bad of this material world, one must boldly propagate Krishna consciousness. And the enemies are not necessarily, the people out there or the law or whatever we think it is. The enemies are within our own heart. They're right inside us. So this is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, are we on or are we off?
We are still on, Maharaj.
Okay, we're still on. Are we going to survive through?
No, in fact, we just have to click the link.
Some technological stuff going on here. We can't possibly expect to help, so propagate Krishna consciousness effectively. We can work under the direction of a pure devotee who is transcendental. So of course, we can be an agent of that pure devotee, and that will purify us. But other than that, the more that we conquer our own enemies within, the more we purify our hearts automatically. Everyone will come across will become purified, just like anyone who has the chance to meet a pure devotee. And I don't know if anyone there online today had the opportunity to actually associate with Srila Prabhupada directly. But if you did, you know what it was like. And even sometimes now, when we're in a kirtan or when we're hearing from Srimad Prabhupada or reading Bhagavatam, whatever it is, one feels that amazing effect of a change of heart taking place automatically.